My name is Austin Roselle. Today we're going to be teaching you how to make 3 different things, all of which will come together in one full meal. We're going to be starting off and we're going to make a tuna burger. Then we're going to top that with a homemade tartar sauce. And then to build off of that, to accompany it, we're going to go ahead and make a sweet potato fry, an oven roasted sweet potato fry. So all really simple stuff, very straightforward, and everything is going to be less than 4 or less ingredients in total per item. So let's go ahead and we're going to start off with the most time-consuming thing is going to be our sweet potato fries. So we've got just one sweet potato here, and you'll notice that it's kind of round, kind of awkward to try to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves a nice kind of easy platform to cut with. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off these 2 ends here, so we've got something nice and square, and then we can just save these for compost later. And then we're going to go and just cut off one side, so we've got ourselves a nice flat surface so that it doesn't roll around on us. So what we're going to do is then we're going to just go through and we're going to cut this down into planks and try to shoot for somewhere between like a 1/4 inch thickness and a 1/2 inch thickness. And we want to try to keep everything as consistent as possible as we're going along, because as we put these in the oven and we roast them off, we want it to cook consistently. We want it to all kind of get done at the same time so that they're all nice and crispy and we don't have any issues of having some soggy fries when we've got some that are burnt. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take these out and kind of lay them, and we're going to just go back and then we're just going to cut them into long strips. Again, shooting for somewhere around a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thickness. Really, it's kind of personal preference. And you'll notice that I have left the skin on these sweet potato fries. And the reason I'm using sweet potatoes today is for a couple different reasons. The biggest one for me is it's just something a little bit different. You get a nice color to it. It's a little bit outside of the box of your typical russet potato or a baked potato or a baker's potato that you would use for a French fry. You've got some little bit of sweetness in there that'll kind of compare with your savory, so it's really nice. And then the last item for that is going to be, because you really just get a little bit of nutrition out of there as well, especially when you leave the peel on like that. It's kind of got a more bang for your buck, a lot more nutrition to it, nutrients and a little bit of antioxidants in there than your typical baker's potato. So now that we've got these all cut down, you can kind of go through and just double check yourself, make sure you didn't miss anything, you don't have any really big pieces or anything like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these, throw them in a nice bowl here, and then we're going to go over them with just a little bit of oil and some salt and pepper. Now what you could do if you'd like, if you've got some spices in your cabinet, you could always do something like a little bit of chili powder would be really great. You can always do a little bit of paprika is always a nice thing as well. But really the sky's the limit. Whatever you would like to do is what you can do. But I'm just going to go with a little bit of salt and pepper on these. Nothing too fancy today. And then we're going to just toss them together really well. Make sure we get everything coated. And before we got these started, I preheated an oven to 400 degrees. It's going to seem a little bit high compared to what you're used to, but we need it to really have that nice high heat so that we can get these nice and crispy on the outside without being overdone in the centers. So spread these out on a baking sheet. Nice even layer here. And we're going to go through and put these in an oven for about 25 minutes. It's going to vary on your ovens at home, but 25 minutes is a nice benchmark to start with. And then after that 25-minute window, you're going to take them out of the oven using an oven mitt. Of course, you want to make sure you don't burn yourself. And then a pair of tongs or a spatula, and then just kind of move them around a little bit. Kind of flip them around, shake them up a little bit, and then get them back in that one even layer. And that's going to help promote a really nice even cook time. So we're going to get those in the oven there, and that's going to take, like I said, about 25 minutes. And then we're going to flip them around, and then we're going to go back for another 10 to 15 minutes. So while those are in the oven, what we're going to do is the next thing we're going to work on here is going to be our tuna burger. And your tuna burger is going to be just 4 ingredients, nice and easy. So it's going to be 1 can of tuna, 1/2 cup of panko-style breadcrumbs. I personally prefer panko-style breadcrumbs for a couple reasons. One, when you get them, they're almost never seasoned. So it's really nice you can control the seasoning yourself. A lot of times when you buy store-bought breadcrumbs, they're usually very salty. If you buy more of just like your generic style breadcrumb. On top of that, panko, you get a nice little more of a consistent crunch. They're not so gritty, and it's really, really nice for the texture in there. Add in 1 tablespoon of mustard. You can use yellow mustard if you like. I personally really enjoy Dijon mustard, or even like a stone ground mustard is really nice. It's really just personal preference for what you want in there. And then the last thing we're going to add in is going to be 2 eggs. So when I use eggs in anything, I always like to crack them in a separate bowl first for a couple different reasons. The first reason is going to be in case you have bad luck and you get some shell in there. And then the other reason is so that if you were to beat them separately, you can always do that. So we're good here. We've got 2 nice fresh eggs, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm not going to worry about beating these at a time because we are going to mix this all together. So you can just go ahead and get those straight in as well. So now that we've got these in here, we're just going to kind of break those yolks up. And you really don't want to go crazy and mix it up too much. You really want to kind of do a nice fold on this, all right? So what you want to do is kind of go around the outside and then bring it inside. And just slowly scraping down the sides of your bowl as you're going along. And you'll notice that I've got some big chunks of tuna in there. That's okay. We're going to break it down a little bit, but we don't want to beat it up too much, okay? We want to try to keep that nice consistency in there so that we don't have, you know, one chunk that's going to be really big and then it's going to have like spots where it doesn't really have it in there, all right? So we want to try to just nice and easy, mixing it around. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to throw a little bit of salt and pepper in there. So we've got a nice even mixture here. And then we're going to season it one last time. And the thing that's really nice about whenever you season anything, I think a lot of people always get kind of stuck on amounts for anything. So they'll think, you know, oh, they have to follow a recipe exactly or it's going to turn out wrong. And that's not always the case, especially when it comes to seasonings. You know, that's going to be something that's really going to be up to your personal preference. You know, you might have someone who has a really high salt tolerance. You might have somebody that really doesn't like salt in general. It's going to be really your personal preference to how you want to do it. So don't feel like you're stuck with following a recipe exactly. So while this is sitting here, I'm going to get the stove turned up here. And we're going to shoot for like a nice medium-high heat. And then we're going to do just a couple of tablespoons of oil in there as well. So for this specific application, I'm just using a canola oil. You can always use something like a peanut oil as well if you'd like. I personally try to avoid it just for allergy reasons. And also, canola oil is a nice flavorless oil. When you use things like peanut oil, avocado oil, some of those, or even a nice extra virgin olive oil, you know, that's something where you're really focusing on getting that flavor, and I don't necessarily want that in this application. So I'm going to avoid using it. So now that I've got this mixture here, I want to kind of just go through and divide it into 2 separate amounts so that I can go back and make a patty with it. And as I'm doing that, I've got my oil in already. And you want to let your oil get a little bit warm before you go ahead and go in. That way you get a nice crispy outside, because the issue is if we were to go in with cold oil, you're going to let your tuna burgers are going to sit in there, and they're just going to kind of absorb some of that oil, and they'll get a nice greasy feel to it, rather a not nice greasy feel to it. And we want to avoid that. So what we're going to do is we're going to let our oil get nice and warm here, and then I'm going to take this mixture here and just kind of patty it up in my hands. So you'll notice that it's really loose. It's not going to be something like a typical burger where it's really tight, and that's where our egg is going to come in. Our egg is really going to kind of bind it together. And then those breadcrumbs as well. So now that we've got our mixture here, we're going to kind of patty it out. And then we're just going to kind of slide it into our oil off of our hand here, okay? And it might kind of break up a little bit, and that's all right. We just want to try to keep it somewhat consistent while it's in there. And you don't want to just touch that oil outright either, because that's going to be nice and hot. And you can already kind of hear that sizzle going. And I'm just going to get this other one here. Same thing. I'm just going to kind of shimmy it off my finger and in there. And you can always use a spatula if you'd like. You don't have to use your hands. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to take these gloves off here, kind of clean up my work area. And then while those are cooking, we really just want to cook them until they hit an internal temperature of 165 degrees. And that's so that our egg gets cooked. So while that's cooking, I'm going to do one last thing, and we're going to make a really nice, easy tartar sauce that's going to go on top of our burger. So to do that, again, we've just got 4 ingredients. We've got a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, half a tablespoon of Tabasco sauce, half a tablespoon of sweet pickle relish, and then we're going to use the juice of 1/2 of a lemon, which is going to work out to be about a tablespoon. So we're going to go ahead and take these items here and then just mix them all together. And the same thing with this tartar sauce. You can really use whatever you'd like. If you don't want the Tabasco in there, you don't have to have it. I like it because it adds just a little bit of heat in there. Nothing too crazy. You can also add other items to it, like if you wanted to use mustard, that's always a great one. If you wanted to add some garlic in there. It's really, again, it's kind of whatever your personal preference is. You don't have to do any items in particular. All right. So now I'm going to go back through and grab out these couple of seeds that I got in there. Just set those off to the side. And then we're just going to mix this together. And you'll notice that because I've got that Tabasco in there, it's got a nice kind of pink hue to it. Again, just something you always want to think about. It's not about just how things taste. You always want to kind of get that color in there as well, because you always eat with your eyes before you actually taste your food. So you want to just have a nice variety of colors and make sure everything looks really nice. I personally really am a sucker for a nice brioche bun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our bun, take just a little bit of our tartar sauce on the bottom, and what that's going to do is that's going to help our burger from sliding around once we get it on that bun. And then I always like to throw a little bit extra on top. I go a little bit heavier on top, so you kind of almost get a cascade effect once you put your top bun on. Let's see how we're doing over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a slotted spatula, and I'm just going to pull this off just to make sure there's no excess grease on there. And if you're making these ahead of time, you can always use a plate with a paper towel on it or something like that if you're making a large amount. But I'm going to come off right on top of my burger here, or on top of my bun, and then I'm going to top it with just a little bit of nice bright leaf lettuce, a couple of slices of tomato, and then throw that top bun on there with that tartar sauce. And then what we'll do is we'll grab our sweet potato fries, which after you've gone through and flipped them, you want to let them sit for about 5 minutes or so before you go ahead and take them out of the oven and get ready to enjoy them. But we're just going to finish our plate here with a nice pile of these sweet potato fries. And there you've got it, tuna burger with sweet potato fries. And the best part about this whole meal is the recipe that I just used actually creates enough servings for 2, and it works out to be about $2.38 per serving. So on top of having a really great meal with some nice flavors and some really nice nutrition behind it, the best part is you're really not hurting your wallet either. Thanks. Enjoy.